Okay.
Ah, there we go.
All right.
Okay.
Perfect. Ainsley.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for having me. I am going to review our construction and demolition debris diversion ordinance. As Emily mentioned, this is in effect today. We passed it in January of 2025, and it went into effect February of 2025. So for this presentation, I'm just going to go over the background, what got us here, what persuaded council, the outreach stakeholder engagement we did, and where we are now. It's only been in effect for a couple months, so we aren't actively seeing projects being applied to this code. Everyone's really in like the permitting phase for now. So it's going to be about the background and the intro leading up to this ordinance. And then I will open up for questions at the end. But if there's any burning question you have mid-presentation, somebody just maybe Allie or Emily jump in and let me know because I'm minimizing all of the views so I can't see anybody. Okay, so to start is our background. Our council set carbon goals of an emissions reduction target of 26 or 63% by 2030. This was set in 2021, along with a total landfill reduction goal of 70% by 2050. So we were able to go to council, say, hello, you passed these goals, and we are here to help you reach them for the city. A part of our GHG emission goals, our GHG inventory, is landfilling, and 16% of Aspen's annual emissions is from the landfilling of waste. And then we went a layer deeper and said, Council, 53% of our annual waste production is construction and demolition debris. So if we want to make an impact in reducing our emissions, we need to target our landfilling of waste, of materials that could be recovered. And we need to also look at C&D. In 2023, Pitkin County Solid Waste Center, that's where our landfill is, did a waste audit which showed us what is in our trash. And this pie chart just demonstrates all the different materials that are within our C&D debris being thrown away as trash. The concrete and the brick and the untreated lumber, the metals, all of those items could have been recycled right at the landfill itself. So the Solid Waste Center accepts all of those materials. They just need to be separated out, and then they have the ability to crush, resell, recycle, repurpose those materials. So we just kind of painted the picture to council. This is your goal. This is the state of landfilling. This is what's in the landfill. And C&D is what we really need to go after if we want to make any reductions in those emissions or landfill amounts. Additionally, council also adopts our Aspen Sustainability Action Plan, where we listed explicitly we need to pass a C&D policy. And then Pitkin County, which is the county Aspen resides in, they've actually had a C&D ordinance in place since 2021. So we demonstrated how successful the county's ordinance has been, the contractor awareness, the diversion that's been accomplished through their ordinance, and how we could see it happening in Aspen. Stakeholder engagement and feedback is really, really important to our council. So we wanted to make sure that we did our due diligence in talking with the local contractors. Fortunately, as I mentioned, the county has had their code in place for the last 3 or 4 years now, and we were already able to talk to contractors that are already doing diversion on the ground. So it wasn't a surprise to them when we started surveying and asking, like, how is it going with diversion? Tell us your successes, tell us your challenges, and then what can we do on the city side to maybe incentivize or make it a little easier if the city is to adopt a similar diversion standard? What we heard from the contractors is they were really worried about space. Aspen has a very tight footprint compared to the area that Pitkin County works in. So unincorporated Pitkin County is usually really big landscapes, houses with a lot of space around them, like this picture demonstrates. But in Aspen, we're building lot line to lot line. Contractors were nervous about the additional dumpsters that would be required for separating the materials out. So we took back all that feedback, and we actually heard from other local contractors that are doing C&D diversion now without any sort of regulatory reasoning, that they just create piles on site and they have trucks running whenever the pile's big enough. They load it into the truck goes away and recycles it. So we checked that box. We're like, okay, we figured out space. The next one was time and cost, and that's just a reality we had to demonstrate to council that it does take longer to deconstruct, not too much longer, about 2 to 3 times longer just in the demolition phase, but not the whole building scope. And then also because it takes longer, it's going to cost additional funding for that labor. That's the reality we had to present to them. We heard from different contractors that the increase was around 11% for the demolition phase. So we just told that to council. And then there were savings that can be seen if people are to do diversion correctly. So our tipping fees at the landfill for mixed C&D loads that are going into the landfill is like over $200 per ton. When it's separated out as metal, it's around $50 per ton. So there's a really huge potential here for cost savings. They just need to start doing the right thing for separating out their materials. We also demonstrated to council that there is the cost of doing nothing. So sometimes they would be too focused on like what is the cost the business is going to have, the contractors, building, laborers, all of that. And we wanted to zoom out and say, there's also community costs here. So once our landfill closes, which they got an expansion to do, but if we don't change our practices, we're going to have the same problem years down the road. But once this landfill closes, the community is going to have to pay for the further transport of their municipal waste, of their single stream recycling, of all of that. So we just wanted to let council know that hauling and servicing fees for the individual residents is going to be highly impacted when the next closest landfill is 2 hours away from here. We also wanted to demonstrate the environmental costs. So 1 ton of lumber in the landfill is equal to 2 tons of greenhouse gases a year. And the production of cement is one of the most intensely carbon intense products to make. The production of new materials versus recycling what we're throwing away and reusing that aggregate, highly intensive for emissions. And then the transportation distances of where we're harvesting the materials to bring them into Aspen, letting them know the full life cycle analysis of our materials is beyond just the landfill, but it's where is it coming from? So looking at that scope 3 emission. So all that to be said, we let them know their goals, we let them know the stakeholder engagement, we let them know the cost of doing nothing, brought us to the construction and demolition diversion ordinance. So what it does is it prevents the permanent landfill disposal of recoverable building materials by requiring all locally salvageable materials be recycled, repurposed, or rehomed, reducing emissions and conserving landfill operations. I will now go into the applicability for this code. We did not want to touch every single permit that we have in the city because we have hundreds of permits that come through every year. And we just knew that wouldn't be realistic. It wouldn't be a good use of staff time or the applicant's time to go through every single application looking for their waste diversion report. And that's because we have a lot of remodels and the materials coming out of remodels aren't locally salvageable here. We wanted to go after the projects that were creating the greatest potential for recoverable materials. And those recoverable materials I'll get into in the next slides, but they're what the Solid Waste Center actively accepts for recycling. So we focused on projects that are greater than 2,000 square feet of disturbance area. And those are just called major impact projects. In this phase, this part of developing the policy was one of the most challenging, actually, because internally within our local government, we have one word that can mean 5 different things to 5 different departments. So we all had to get on the same page about terminology and what does disturbance area mean to engineering versus our community development team. It's not the same. So the applicability is just major impact projects greater than 2,000 square feet. They have the greatest potential for recoverable materials. The diversion requirements themselves is 100% diversion is required for those recoverable materials. They must be separated out on site or just separated out by type for recycling. The recoverable materials are listed here. It is concrete and porcelain, organics, asphalt, corrugated cardboard, rock and dirt, untreated lumber and pallets, metal appliances, scrap metal. And we have leniency for hard to recycle items. So we wanted to set up the contractors and applicants permittees for success, saying, we know the Solid Waste Center can't accept these materials and your truck is coming up to the Solid Waste Center with all of these materials. They're just all mixed together right now. So we're asking you to separate them out and we are requiring that every single poundage or tonnage of concrete is pulled out. We then went into enforcement and penalties because in Aspen, we do have circumstances where people can often pay their way out of compliance, and we didn't want that to happen. So we wanted to make sure that the cost was representative of the environmental damage done. and that it was high enough for people to pay attention and actually want to follow our regulations. So at the time of permit, when the permittee is applying for their permit, they have to submit a diversion compliance deposit. And this is based off of the tonnage of the project. So like how much material are they going to be disturbing and moving, multiplied by the environmental cost of if all of those materials were thrown away in the trash. We hired consultants here to create an average of $495 per ton. So the tonnage of the project multiplied by 495 equals their diversion compliance deposit. And that should represent, if the project was to throw away all of their recoverables in the trash, this is the environmental damage done. And those numbers were based off of like the EPA WARM model. We also really want to focus on training and education. So we have a great engineering team that is known as our construction mitigation officers that will be feet on the street, letting us know if they're not seeing compliance on a project, and we can go out and educate and work with those contractors, because once the materials are in the landfill, it's too late, and we don't want to just be collecting a bunch of money. Progressive enforcement, as I mentioned, we want to do a lot of warnings and education touch points. And then we also have unsorted load fees. An unsorted load is when there are recoverables mixed in with the trash stream. And that means they are not in compliance with the code, because those recoverables, 100% of them should be removed from the trash and recycled. Our last enforcement option is a stop work order. And at that time, if they've received one, they are not eligible to receive their deposit return anymore. They as in the contractors, project managers, really do not like stop work orders, because time is money, and that's the teeth we have with this code. So if they're being negligent and hard to work with and just, not paying attention to our warnings and education, then we can put a stop work order down, say you cannot work on this project anymore until you talk to us and go through a training. Where we are now is the policy became effective this February. Applicants have begun submitting their diversion plans, but we don't anticipate to see anyone breaking ground and working within, we use Green Halo for the tracking software. We don't anticipate to see anyone actually working and diverting until spring of 2026. That's just the natural flow of construction in Aspen. It takes a long time to review permits, and then we'll see them break ground in spring 2026. We are doing a contractor training this summer. We are having someone from the Front Range come out and host a training this August with all our contractors, and hope to do a field trip to a demo site to see how diversion is going. And we are now hiring a program administrator. So we also told council that this ordinance won't be successful unless we have like a full-time employee paying attention, reviewing the permits, reviewing the waste diversion plans, out there working with the contractors, the laborers, to make sure the diversion is occurring correctly. So if you know anybody, I meant to add a QR code. I didn't get to that. If you know anybody, we are hiring the program administrator. You can just search City of Aspen jobs, and it's a construction demolition specialist. I believe that's the title. So thank you so much for having me and listening to me speak about our ordinance. This is my email if anybody has any follow-up questions and you want to get in touch about the policy process or where we are now, or learn about the job. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just open it up for a conversation. Thank you.
Wow. I'm quite excited about it, and it'll be interesting to see how this comes about. So I put 2 questions in the chat if we get to those, but let's go to MJ and then Kelsey.
So my question could have been that I misheard or just didn't hear this detail, but I was wondering how you are calculating the tonnage that is tied to your performance security or to your performance deposit.
Yes, that is a really great question. I'm going to have to, maybe I can try and pull it up on the side, but we are taking the numbers that we receive from the permit applicant is the disturbance area. So we have a conversion of the volume they're disturbing and multiplied by a factor, I can't remember, which gives us the tonnage. It's not a perfect science, but the research we did, I think it was a resource from the EPA, if it's still up there, is what we received for that metric. So it's the volume of disturbance area by that metric equals the tonnage of disturbance estimate.
It's just a follow-up. Is there any, at the end of the day, when the project is closed out, is there any plan to kind of look at what that estimate was compared to wait tickets and receipts and what they actually generated?
Yeah, that's a great question. We'll see that down the line. Green Halo is the software we'll be using. It will track all of that tonnage for us, and we will see from all the tickets the summary. And we can do that comparison. And that's why we'll have that FTE, like the full-time employee doing like the fine-tooth comb look at it to be like, did they actually estimate correctly? And are we giving them a hard time, or did they just like, overshot the amount they thought they were going to produce and recycled less or something?
Thanks.
Just real quick, I've calculated a project that just came in and they had 1.2 million pounds. So if you take that into tons, I was like their deposit would have been like $318,000. I was like, holy moly.
Yeah, and the
So
county has been doing this for a while, and we'll see deposits in the
yeah.
hundreds of thousands, definitely.
Wow.
Yeah. And in the code also, I didn't mention, but we have then made sure that whatever money we collect from deposits or unsorted loads is used explicitly for waste diversion practices. And it could be hiring contractors for training or maybe buying dumpsters or materials, whatever they might need to help them out.
Awesome. Kelsey.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Ainsley. I'm sorry if I missed this, but that 2,000 square foot threshold, how did you determine that 2,000 square feet? Is that like an administrative threshold or?
That was something, as I mentioned, internally, we have different definitions for different terminology. And for the major impact projects, that's when our engineering team gets involved and they apply something called our uh, construction management plan. And to link up with existing triggers, their construction mitigation plan says 2,000 square feet of disturbance is a major impact project. And so we just hopped onto that and said, okay, that will be our trigger instead of creating a whole new system in Salesforce. It was like a lot of internal, not so fun details to figure out there. But yeah, most large projects will be caught within that threshold. Something I didn't mention is we do have a demolition definition within the city. However, demolition is only considered demolition if you are affecting greater than 40% of the building footprint. Um, and there are very large hotels here that will just stay right at like 39% and be like, it's not a demo. And then we're like, oh, there's so much material we could have captured here. So that's why we didn't go with that demo definition. And we just said major impact projects greater than 2,000 square feet, you have to comply.
Is that lot size or square footage, or is it we could go offline with that, but
Yeah. It's not lot size. I believe it's a different definition of
okay.
disturbance area
Okay.
that we have. Yeah.
Perfect. I think it was Lisa is next.
Okay.
Okay, unmute. Hi, Ainsley.
Hi.
First of all, thank you for this presentation. You basically are the gold standard as far as I'm concerned, how you guys set this up. So I have a couple questions for the contractors besides space. What are the other, hurdles that they see that they need to overcome to separate and
Yeah.
divert materials?
I think it's the time and the training on the labor side. So all of their workforce, letting them know like you can't just throw something in this dumpster. It has to be separated out here. And it's like the project manager being like, oh, now it's this other thing I have to do. I have to go into Green Halo. I have to make sure my tickets are uploading. I have to educate my workforce. So I think it's just changing business as usual, which was something they weren't totally interested in doing, and the additional time it's going to take them to complete a demo, which it's just, yeah, just the reality of deconstruction.
Okay, so I guess that gets to my next question is the whole diversion reporting. Is that done through the Green Halo program by the hauler, by the landfill? Right now, we're really focused on, Trinity Recycle and Roll Off is really, diversion. And
Yeah.
we have different roll offs, and again, space, and we have phase
Mhm.
diversion because usually it starts depending on if it's a demo or new construction. It could be, concrete washouts and concrete and stuff like that, and metal, and then goes to wood. And then it could be, and when you're unpacking things, it could be cardboard and all that kind of stuff. And we have signage, so it's clearly each container is labeled in both English and Spanish what the material is. But it's all on, we've been taking on the brunt of the diversion reports. So
Mm.
what's best practice that you found on the reporting?
In our code, it is the permittee's responsibility to be the lead on the diversion reporting. So it should not be Trinity's responsibility. Trinity won't have any access to their Green Halo account. It's up to that project manager, the permittee, to get the receipt from you on like the tonnage and the recycling that was done and have that manually uploaded into Green Halo. It's more seamless when it goes to a facility like the Picken County Solid Waste Center, where they have Green Halo integrated into their scale house. So the truck rolls up, it's 20 tons of concrete. That ticket goes immediately to their Green Halo account only if the driver has the Green Halo number and says it to the person at the window. They can say their address, and sometimes that helps, but just make sure whatever projects you're working on, that PM, that project manager, is giving you the Green Halo number if your people are driving that metal up to the solid waste center and talking to
Okay.
the scale house.
Okay, yeah, because obviously we're in Roaring Fork Valley, but not as much as, Eagle County. And Eagle County doesn't have a Green Halo program. So, but they do have to set up a diversion account. But we're the ones then been notifying the landfill. It's in our, our driver
Mhm.
notes, all that kind of stuff. So, okay, thanks for sharing
You're
how that
welcome.
all works. That's really valuable.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Liz, if in Ainsley, if you have to run, let us know.
Okay, I'm good until 3:20. Thank you.
Okay. And we do have another presentation, but
Okay.
yeah. Okay, Liz.
Ainsley, thank you so much. And we all are applauding this milestone of work in the mountains. And along those lines, it would be great if you could speak a little bit to how you were able to get such intra-departmental cooperation.
Mm.
I am quite confident that was a big hurdle as well.
Yes, I think it's the way I approached it was getting to know the problems or the issues that might arise from each department independently. So I could know in my brain and on my spreadsheets, like what issues folks are having before bringing us all together to talk about it. I found that when we all come together in the same room, it's just like, there's no way this could ever happen. And then everyone starts spiraling with each other about their codes and how it won't work. So knowing in the back of your head, because you've had those independent conversations with the different directors or specialists about their issues and coming into that meeting eventually with everybody with maybe some solutions or just making them feel heard and you as the leader are aware of their issues, has led them, in my experience, to not spiral as much. And also like, don't take a no as a no. Like people are just used to doing their same business as usual job that they've been doing for X amount of time they've been with the municipality. And I had to constantly bring them back to the purpose because everyone was on board that, like, yes, we have an issue. There is so much waste going into the landfill from this construction. There was no disagreement there. So whenever people started getting a little squirrely, it was like, okay, but our issue is the construction waste. Yes, we're all on board that this is something we need to solve for. Okay, great. And then we pick up again. Thanks, Liz. Good to see you.
And
Um,
how long was the process from when you started these conversations to when you actually, when council adopted the policy?
I can speak to my timeline. This has always been an interest in the city. I really started, let's think. So we had a work session before we had our first readings. We have 2 readings to pass a policy. And the work session that we had, I believe, was in like, it was either winter of 2023. Oh, wait, yes, winter of 2023 or spring of 2024. So it was at least a year of this development before passage. Things will always come up. Like it was supposed to be presented to council like months before it ended up being presented to council. So I would just encourage resilience and know that you will get there and you just got to keep pushing because there are things outside of your control. Like the attorneys got a really big lawsuit and now they can't focus on helping you develop your policy. And so you just have to sit back and wait and like be ready once they're ready. So it was about a year, stakeholder engagement and other things that just came up. And we had that consultant that did research for us for about like 3 months on the life cycle analysis of construction and demolition debris. Yeah. And I saw Connor had his hand up.
Yeah, I was wondering if there's a reuse component at all. So in terms of like usable household appliances, kitchen cabinet sets, I guess cabinet sets would be a good example, stuff that um, could go to the landfill or get reused if there's any enforcement
Yeah.
on that side of things.
That is a dream. Like we would love for all those materials to be reused. The reality of the marketplace in Aspen right now is we don't have any reuse facility. We have the down in Glenwood, we have the oh my gosh,
Restore.
yes, the restore, but they won't accept everything. And we don't want to tie people's hands behind their back, being like, you have to make sure all of your appliances and cabinetry is repurposed in a way of reuse, because then they're not going to find a home for it and it might just end up in the landfill. But yes, we want to make sure they're going through their appliances. And a lot of the times I've heard them just say, yeah, I give them to my guys. Like someone just rolls up with a truck and they take it. So I know they are trying to take those that equipment out that is usable, but the cabinetry and the doors and the windows and all that really nice material. There's a dream for the solid waste center to have a sort of reuse store similar to what Boulder has, but I'm not sure the status of that yet because our landfill manager has changed hands.
I can speak to that real fast. They do have the Motherload Mercantile, which is, they'll take these things for free instead of charging you to dump. And so they'll take a lot of construction debris and also sports equipment and all sorts of stuff like cabinets and couches. And, it has to be some kind of faucet or something usable. But, yeah, they do take it and they kind of get overwhelmed with how much they have because they don't have the same size requirements. They'll take just about anything.
Yeah.
But they're a great resource.
Yeah. The mercantile. Yeah. Huge supply up there. And it would be great to have like a place where we could put like a covered shelter for all the materials because right now a lot of them can just be outside.
So they're breaking ground here pretty soon on their new like campus, I guess they're calling it, and they're gonna have a huge warehouse with like loading bays and everything. So
oh, amazing!
They're hoping they don't lose the sort of the quaint touch that they have now, but it'll become a little a little bigger.
Great, thank you for the addition, Evan.
Yeah.
And Lauren, you have another question? Oh,
I do, yeah. How much, I guess, so we've been, just for context, we've been trying to present something similar to town council, but have faced a lot of pushback from staff, mainly because we don't have a facility like the Pitkin County landfill that has all of the different recycling options for construction waste, or that diversion availability. So I'm wondering if Pitkin County didn't have the program that it has with being able to recycle all those different materials, do you think that you would have been able to pass a construction diversion ordinance? And do you have any recommendations for communities that might not have that same type of facility?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think it only helped our argument more, saying the place they are throwing away their C&D debris also accepts that separated out C&D debris for recycling. I'm not sure what we would do if we didn't have that local marketplace available. Like that is essential to this policy because we want to make sure we're enforcing something that is doable. It's not costing the contractors more because they're sending it miles, states away. And also looking at like the transportation emissions related to sending those materials further distances. So kind of whole systems thinking. I wish I had an answer for you, Lauren. I would start with conversations with your landfill and see like what recovery efforts are available for partnership in your neck of the woods that maybe your landfill could start like creating piles for and contracts with. That's the best I could say. But if anyone else has opinions, please jump in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one last question. And I typed it in the chat. Okay, so what happens if people don't separate out materials or they say they don't have a particular material at that project? Like, oh, I
Well,
just don't have it. I'm like, how do you prove it or not prove it? Or is there
we
penalties for that or?
Yeah, we have a great team of construction mitigation officers that will literally be on site within like a call's notice and be like, you can't tell me you don't have that material. Or we will do a pre-construction meeting and we will do a walkthrough of their property and see what materials. And we're like, okay, you can't say you're not going to have that. Like we see it.
Yeah.
And then if they aren't being in compliant with the code, well, we will find out from the landfill if we are seeing the tickets come through in Green Halo that are labeled as unsorted loads, because that means there's recoverable materials within them. And that's when we'll give them a call, be like, what's going on? These are the repercussions if you don't comply. And the demolition phase is so quick that like that's why also we need that full-time employee is just to be on it, to be like, oh gosh, I see unsorted loads coming through. Let me go contact that PM. And
I think you're lucky to have the Pitkin County landfill, like to have that piece of it. Like on our side, we don't have that. We don't see anything till the end. And like big red flags for me is like when I see an inspection, it's 2 days. And I'm
yeah.
like, there's no way anything happened in 2 days. It's just like,
Yeah.
no. Okay.
Right.
Anna, and then I want to be respectful of your time, Ainsley.
Thank you.
Ainsley,
Yeah.
what happens when they go to the landfill and they don't get, like if they wanted to cheat the system and they don't give the QR code or the Green Halo code for that job, like in the example you just said?
Great question. They are required, like any sort of construction or waste brought up there, they are required to report the address it's coming from. They can't go through the scale house without it. So if they don't give the Green Halo number, we at least have Green Halo linked to the address, and I'll just have to call up the people at the landfill and be like, hey, can you pull all the tickets for this address? I'm not seeing anything come through Green Halo.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. And thank you all so much. My email was on the last slide, but for simplicity, it's also waste@aspen.gov if you have any follow-up questions.
Thank you,
you.
Ainsley.